Good morning. I am Lindsay Mendenhall, Team Leader for Global Product Implementation, and I am happy to be here today with my team, Carrie Hachtel, Chase Reeder, Leslie Miranda, Sam Shank, and Melissa Thorne. Together, we have prepared a 15-minute presentation to give you an idea of where Russia stands as it relates to everything that we find important as we proceed to export products to their country. As a corporate team, we recommend that cultural training become a priority in the organization. This will enable us to show the Russians that we respect and understand their cultures, beliefs, and behaviors. You'll notice from the chart that there really isn't any cultural dimension where we are closely related to Russia. For example, Russia scores high in power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. The US is just the opposite, scoring high in individualism, masculinity, and indulgence. Therefore, with such drastic differences, sensitivity and patience need to be at the forefront of all negotiations and business dealings with Russia. We also wanted to talk briefly about the 4 areas on the global business culture scales. Again, we are never completely lined up with Russia. We suggest when working with the Russia people that you build relationships prior to trying to do business, that you are direct with them so they don't attempt to find hidden messages in your words, and that you are comfortable with allowing some degree of heated discussions because they are passionate about their belief and will get loud when trying to stand their ground. When it comes to Russian negotiators, they can be tough. It is not uncommon for them to once again use their emotion to exaggerate comments, give false demands, offer fictitious concessions, or even lose their temper and storm out of the room. Words of advice here. If they know that you are under a time constraint, they will use that to their ability. So we recommend that you keep your travel schedule confidential. Be careful and slow when making concessions, especially at first. Stay calm even if they don't, and attempt to distract from the situation or diffuse any tension and anger along the way. Don't expect a quick deal, so prepare to be patient and persistent. The Russian government is called the Russian Federation. It is a multi-party representative democracy. President Vladimir Putin was re-elected as president of Russia in 2018. He holds no specific government power, but is the voice of the people, or the head of state, and is the commander-in-chief. The prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, who is appointed by the president, is the head of the government, which means he has the authoritative command in the government. Recently in the news, there have been political influences that are making international business somewhat difficult. Agendas like national independence and national self-reliance are being pushed in order to keep Russia Russian. For instance, on May 3, 2019, Russia passed a law that keeps the nation's internet within Russian networks. This effort is to have the government keep tighter surveillance and tighter control over its people, as well as foreign threats. This law could slow or even halt e-commerce and international business operations. The Economic Freedom Index scores countries based on 12 categories to determine the economic freedom of a country. These scores are averaged to come up with an overall score. The chart shows Russia's current score and United States score as a point of reference. The blue line represents the world average. We see advantages to operating in Russia. Russia has a flat 20% corporate tax rate, which could lead to higher profits, which we could then reinvest in the business. It is also relatively easy to start a business in Russia. There are only 4 steps we would need to take. It should not take long to start selling once we are ready to enter the market. Operating in Russia does have some disadvantages and risks that we need to recognize. The current government system operates without integrity. Laws are not consistently enforced by the judicial system, and rulings tend to favor the government. Russia takes an aggressive foreign policy stance and currently has sanctions issued by the US and EU that limit both financial and investment freedoms in the country. We would also need to make sure operations and imports comply with the US sanctions to avoid hefty fines. We recommend contracting with a Russian national who is familiar with both US international law and the Russian government to help mitigate these risks. With the regulatory environment, we looked at 3 key things, which are starting a business, which are starting a business, taxes, and contract enforcement. As we know, the Russian wealth is mostly found in government, so there are many restrictions in place to keep things that way. We also found that approximately 46% of profits are paid in taxes, which is higher than most of Europe and Central Asia by about 10%. And when it comes to contract enforcement, things are generally resolved a lot quicker than surrounding areas where it comes to the time the complaint was filed to the time that a payment was made. But that doesn't always mean things are done justly, which is something to keep in mind. One key thing to do in order to succeed in Russia is to invest in relational capital. This is a big difference from the US culture to Russian culture. For example, when referring to gifts to potential business partners, things we would associate with corruption in the United States are common and appropriate business practices in Russia. It can be said that in addition to the company's physical capital, this is essential to success in business here. Now, I have asked my teammate Carrie Hachtel to spend some time discussing the Russian economy with you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Russia has been a member of the World Trade Organization since 2012 and holds Most Favored Nation status. Countries who are part of this growing group receive economic benefits and ease of trade. Russia is also part of a regional free trade association known as the Eurasian Economic Union. It has been in existence since 2015, and they have several bilateral trade agreements which will help us when doing business in Russia. We will be able to take advantage of these agreements, which will add additional benefits to our corporation, such as eliminate barriers to trade and investment, lower business costs, and enhance economic efficiency. When it comes to foreign direct investment in Russia, it is important to remember that they are still in their infancy in this area. Today, we find that the government still closely regulates involvement in their main sources of income, which is raw materials, heavy industry, and aerospace. Their most notable incentives are found in their special economic zones. A lot has changed in recent years for the better, and they are essentially accumulated here. These areas give special status and privileges to businesses in these geographic zones. For example, in these zones, foreigners have ownership rights, which was a right that foreigners were previously restricted from. On this slide, we want to share with you information about Russia's gross national income, which measures Russian income earned abroad and locally. There was a decline in the last 5 years, but also an incline. The current upward trend favors our chances of success in doing business in Russia. Their gross domestic product, or GDP, measures the health and size of the economy. GDP trend is very similar to the GNI. There was a quick decline followed by an incline. We could benefit from this current upward trend. The economic status of Russia here are split into two parts, the inflation rate and the interest rate. An increase in inflation means the price of everything goes up. Rapid increases, like what we can see on the graph that happened in 2015, can affect business operations by having to keep up with a change in the value of product. For instance, if a rapid increase in inflation were to happen, and the price of our product stayed the same, we would essentially be losing money on that product because it would be worth less due to the inflated cost. It requires product price reassessment. Similarly, interest rates have a near identical looking graph, which share similar information. Both economic measurements in the past 5 years have shown the inconsistency or instability the Russian economy has. We make the following suggestions based on the Russian economic environment at this time. First, right now we can enter the Russian market because current economic growth is on the incline. However, we should proceed with caution as there are tensions with Russian international relations. And by being cautious, we should be able to see if the Russian economy is reverting to a decline. The ruble is the official currency of Russia. In 2013, the ruble was traded strongly. In 2014, Russia experienced a perfect storm that put the country into a recession and the currency exchange plummeted. The ruble still hasn't fully recovered, and there are concerns that it won't without government reform. To mitigate the risk of the depreciating ruble, we recommend either requiring all transactions or processed in the US dollar or diversifying the company's investments into other currencies as well. Either one will manage the impact of changes to currency exchange rates. Lindsay, back to you.
Thanks, Carrie. That helped us all understand the economy of Russia more clearly. Okay, so let's get on with it. We have 3 products that we would like to suggest today as a way to enter the Russia market. We have kept in mind the values Russians have today and also the limited space they have in their homes, approximately 50 square meters in size. The Russian people value first, home and family, and second, health. So the products we suggest take these statistics into account. The first one is a stationary bike. It focuses on health at home for the family. Russian streets are crowded and often not suitable for biking. They do not have bike lanes, and many times a biker will have to carry his or her bike up a flight of stairs to get to their location. Another obstacle is the long winter months. This exercise solution is great for the small spaces Russians reside in, as it collapses for storage. We know that the demand will take off because people will realize that they can get a great workout without having to be out on the street or in the gym. However, because stationary bikes are new to the Russian culture, it may take off slowly at first. Our second proposed product is clothes dryers. A dryer is a convenience the rest of the world can't live without. That could add more free time for families to spend together. Again, with the long winter months, having a clothes dryer inside their house will add value to their family life when clothes no longer have to be hung to dry in their small apartments. This product has the potential to alter the Russian culture and show them the way of convenience, but it will take focus on our part to market it appropriately. Our third and final proposed product is a good, lightweight, collapsible winter jacket. We would differentiate our jacket by including an internal heater layer on the chest and back. Our competition is companies like North Face and Columbia. However, they do not appear to be strong in the Russian economy yet, according to our online searches. Cultural issues could potentially be concerns with style and taste for this particular product. Another issue is that Russians may prefer to buy Russian-made clothing. However, again, with the right marketing, we believe it will be a hit. These are all proven products in other countries, so our team doesn't feel like we could go wrong with launching them in Russia. Let's answer questions you may have today now. And then, Mr. Hatterley, can we find some additional time on your calendar to have a deeper discussion next week? Thank you once again for your time today.